right, we're going to get dug in here. We did pick up our fluids we needed at Anderson RC. The kit calls for 1,000 diff lube. They were out, so we went with 2,000. It still feels relatively thin and should be fine. Again, just a parking lot basher. So we're ready to go ahead and start installing the belts and spur gear. So we're going to go forward and try to keep this somewhat interesting if possible. Just following the steps. All right, we're back. We got the belts installed, the center spur gear. That's a bit of a trick to get the, there's a little plastic washer, which I don't really like the idea of a plastic washer. Trying to get the plastic washer on both sides of this shaft that the spur gear rides on. And the only other thing I don't really like is it's got these bushings that the shaft rides on. Put the bushings in, then you put the, you slide the shaft through with a thin washer, plastic washer, in through the pulleys, and before it comes to the other side, you put another plastic washer. That's all fine and dandy, but this shim, this center, can move. If you tighten it up anymore, the spur gear don't turn. And it feels like it's in the best alignment when it's further to the right. Yeah, I don't know. They do offer an optional spur gear mount and an aluminum pulley for the center. I think that's going to be a must-have upgrade. I don't know if it's going to change any of that in and out. I don't know if some of this in and out may have changed when they replaced the plastic parts with aluminum. They don't appear to be any thicker or thinner, so that don't make any sense. But I read these instructions or looked at the pictures over and over, and I really don't see what I'm doing wrong, if I am doing anything wrong. So if you built one of these cars, please comment below, because that shaft right there seems a little odd, that it can move. It only goes in one way, screw on the other, bushing, washer, washer, and it should lock in place, but the bushing's got a lot more. They probably got about 2 millimeters of gap on either side, depending on which side you push it to. I imagine that could become an issue under power. So we're going to go forward with it. That's easy enough to shim that if I need to lock it in place so it can't move side to side. But for now, we're going to go forward. Next up is the front shock mounts. And we've got 2 shock mounts here, and they all appear to be the same, so it ought to be relatively simple. Looks like the bulkheads are the same, so I imagine the shock mounts are the same. So let's throw those on, and then we'll bring you back when we got another step done. All right, we got the shock mounts and the shock towers put on. Another little snag that I ran into, it calls for 3x8 screws to mount these shock tower mounts. And this end it's fine, but this end's got a lot more material. And I went with a 3x10. But the 3x8 in the front is like a half a turn, and it was out of threads. If I need a 3x10 somewhere else in the kit, I'm sure I'll have some in the box, but for some reason they're calling for 3x8s on both ends of this shock tower, and there's just not enough meat there to grab a hold of. So we were at 3x10s on the end and 3x8s. You can't see in the camera, but see the thickness difference between that and the back mount. A 3x8 up here, I'm out of threads before I even reached the bulkhead. So yeah, we went with 10s. We ran out of 10s elsewhere in the kit. Like I said, I probably got them in the box somewhere. Now we're on to the steering linkage. And looks pretty straightforward. Again, it's a bunch of molded parts. Well, I got to put 2 more ball studs in the back here. And another thing in the kit, it calls for a plastic washer under this ball stud, but the washers in the shrink wrap are in the same pack as the same pack as all the anodized parts. I believe that's the shim you use. There's not a good description. I think, and this car's been out so long, I think there's been several revisions, but there's just not any notes that come along with it to advise you on those revisions. All right, all studs, shock towers, steering. Go for one of them, and one of them. All right, let's pop this on, we'll come right back. All right, we got all the drivetrain in. We got the steering rack built, 8 ball bearings. It's silky smooth. I ended up going back and shimming this shaft for the spur gear. It was just driving me nuts the way it was moving. And once I put the upper deck on, if this spur gear isn't centered perfectly, the pulleys will rub it ever so slightly on the edges right here. But going forward, I'd say the #1 hop up on this car would probably be this aluminum spur gear adapter. I think it's only like 16 bucks. That would definitely be an upgrade. I don't know if it would eliminate having to shim this thing so much, but I ended up taking one of the plastic shims that it calls for on the inside and put it on the outside to take up some of the slack from the bushings. And then I dug through my box and found a couple of probably like 10,000 shims. I put 2 over here and 1 over on this side, and to take that shaft from moving at all. Definitely thread lock this screw in, because it doesn't lock, and that right there pretty much, if you cinch it down, it'll lock your spur gear up. It just crushes the bearings, so it has to be somewhat just snug and not tight to keep the drivetrain from being too bound up. I got the belt tensioner on. Probably have my belt a little snug. That's easily fixed. Now that once it's all built, all you gotta do is pop these 4 screws out of the shock tower mount, pull it off, and you can adjust the cams to loosen or tighten the belt. We may run it one time like it is, because it's not super tight, but it does seem like it's got a little bit too much tension on it. It was fine until I put the tensioner on there, and that tensioner pulled the belt up. You know, it does what tensioners do. It pulled the belt up just a little bit and tightened it up a bit much. But other than that, we are making progress. We're on to the suspension. Yeah, we are making slow progress. Sorry, this ain't the most exciting video. We are trying to build this car in the evening after work. And once again, it's Monday night. This is a Wednesday video. So let's get to work on the suspension, and hopefully have this thing on all 4s tonight. But we'll see. Let's see how far we can get. And then at the end of the video, we do have to make a little announcement, so hang around for that. And yeah, let's get to work and get this suspension on. All right, it's not quite on all 4s, but we got 4 arms on it. We got it put together to this point. It does have quite a bit of adjustability built into it. It does have droop screws in front and rear. The rear toe block, it has 3, 3.5, and 2.5. We just went in the middle of the road and went with 3. It's got anti-squat shims that you can put under the suspension mounts in the rear to adjust your suspension there. Plastic pillow balls. I'm not a big fan of that. Imagine they're going to wear. It's a budget kit. What do you expect? You don't expect all machine hardware. They're smooth though. I mean, put just a drop of green slime on there associated. It calls for some sort of grease. It doesn't really, like I say, it don't come with any fluids, so we just put some a little bit of green slime in there just to give it something. I know putting grease in here and running it in the parking lot is probably not a good idea because it's going to attract dirt. But we just put a drop in there just to, so it wouldn't be too bound up. Other than that, we're going to take a break for the night. Come back, hopefully get this thing on 4 wheels before the end of the video. That's the plan. And we've got a body in mind. And I may set it on there and see if it fits. But if it don't, we always have a plan B. Yeah, that's pretty much it for tonight. Appreciate you hanging around. Let's continue this tomorrow. All right, downtown Lexington. It's the spooky cruise. It's a regular Tuesday night, but they're doing a little Halloween theme. We're just riding through. All right, that was downtown Lexington. Once again, cruising. We didn't stop. We got things to do. We're gonna put a car together tonight. All right, we're back. It's the next day. I didn't film doing the uprights or steering blocks or hub carriers, whatever you want to call them. Pretty plain and simple. Just run the pin through. They have a set screw. That's nice. They don't have E-clips, so it's got a flat spot on the pin. You just run the screw in and tighten it down. The universals in the instructions must be, like say it's older instructions, you had to assemble them, but these already come pre-assembled, so that knocks out a lot of little tedious work. So now the not so fun part is building turnbuckles and building the shocks. And then at that point we'll have a roller, and then we got to decide what kind of electronics we want to put in here, because I do have a servo, I do have the radio, but motor and speed control, we're still going to have to pick that up. We'll probably pick that up this weekend. So anyways, let's get this thing rolling. We're just measuring out the lengths of our turnbuckles. It's good to have a set of cheap calipers. Just pick these up at Harbor Freight. These instructions are not one-to-one. They got images and pictures, what parts you need, but it's not true to scale on the sheet, so you do have to measure everything out. It makes it easier anyways. Less guesswork when you can measure stuff. And everything's really close. That one's supposed to be 20, it's 20. These are supposed to be 35, and they're like 36, right on the money. So a millimeter is not going to make a difference. That's just half a turn on the thread. And it does have the length of the turnbuckles once you're done between the ball studs or the ball caps. And then you can, like I say, it's not true to scale on the instruction sheet. So once you get done, it's good to have this to measure it out and make sure you're close. And you just got to get close now, because we're not really setting the car up. We're just getting it built. But you don't want it so far out of whack where you got too much camber or caster or whatever. So we're going to build it per instructions, and we'll go from there. All right, we got all that fun stuff done. We got our rears, our steering, and this one goes to the servo. And sure, you've all done this before. This is pretty simple. Just install and snap into place. Get this dog bone lined up. For some reason, the rear drive shaft is the only one that has the little plastic cushions that come with it. It does not call for any in the front, and it didn't come with any, so not sure why, but it didn't. Oh, I'm not done yet. These are for the front, or are they? Huh. Let me do some more, of course I got 2 more links here. The long ones are for the steering. Oh yeah. There you go. Always refer to the instructions. These things don't snap on too hard. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Because if they don't go on very hard, they come off pretty easy also. Now one thing I did notice, these little plastic cushions for the CVDs or dog bones, they're a little tight in there. Everything on this car is molded instead of machined. It does have machined out drives, but I guess that's what comes along with the cheaper kits, I believe. So that comes to be expected. It's not a precision machine for $100. Seems like it's good materials. They seem a little hard, which got me a little concerned about breakage. Because generally with the little harder material, it's stiffer, which is a good thing, but also could possibly be more brittle. Steering linkage, that one goes right there. Oh, y'all seen that in fast forward. So let's make up our last 2 linkages, and then we'll commence the building shocks, which I do not like doing, but it's easy, but just one of those necessities that aren't real fun to me. Also, I got this old Lunsford turnbuckle wrench. Yeah, makes life a little easier instead of wearing your fingertips out or scratching up your anodized aluminum too bad with a pair of pliers. Let's get to work, get these done, come back, we'll build some shocks. All right, we're gonna get started on the shocks, and I stand corrected. The shock bodies are machine threaded, but they're plastic. I thought they were aluminum. I said that in the first video. They're really smooth, but they are plastic. And there should be 4 O-rings to cushion this, well, to keep this collar from self-adjusting itself while you're driving. But I don't see those. That's the only thing I haven't got my hands on. I got the O-rings for the shocks, I got the bladders for the lids, and there's supposed to be 4. Now, of course, these instructions have been upgraded or changed because it's calling for a white spring and a red spring. These springs are black and there's no indicating stripe. Sometimes they have a stripe, a color stripe, but these are just black. There's nothing. Oh, actually, they have front and rear. There's a tiny letter, tiny little white speck. That's a letter, that's the rear. So I'm assuming they're different weight springs. And yeah, I guess we could check the diameter of the coil if we wanted to get specific, but it says front and rear, so we'll put them on the rear. Shocks are pretty straightforward build. It's a lot like an IRS shock if you ever built one of those. Everything loads in the bottom cap, and then first of all you build your pistons, and I'll have that ready. It does come with 2-hole and 3-hole pistons. We're going to build with 3-hole. Just again, we're not tuning this thing for anything. We're going to run it in the parking lot some. Make sure you clean any of the flashing off of your piston that's going to be rubbing inside the shock body so you don't get air or bubbles. Don't know how good these shocks are. I'm sure they're okay for what we're doing. It does come with a shock tool. That's pretty cool to hold the shaft while you tighten up the ball end. Not going to bore you with shock building, but we're going to get these shocks done, and we'll start getting them on the car. All right, last piston. They do give you a few extra of the E-clips. You got these, that's the only thing that's got an E-clip on the cars, but they're tiny to hold the piston onto the shock shaft. And so far, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 4 went right together. No issues. Like any kind of shock assembly, it says in the instructions, and should just be pretty basic knowledge. Always lube up the O-rings so you don't drag them or tear them or get any kind of scratches on them as you assemble. We're going to use a little bit of the Team Associated green slime. Again, it's a good little sticky grease to hold stuff together while you're working on it, and it helps lube them O-rings so they don't get snagged on the threads or anything on the shock shaft. Pretty simple. Pay attention to how these spacers go in. They do have a top and bottom. It has a little bitty ridge. It's hard to see it, but there's a ridge in that. This is a guide for the piston. The piston's riding through here on an O-ring. That just gives the shock a little bit of integrity. A little dab of grease in there. Make sure the O-ring's got it. And again, with this other piece, there is a top and bottom. It has a slightly raised, there's my wrinkly finger, slightly raised top on it, and that goes down to sandwich in. Actually, it goes up. Listen to me. Look at the instructions, dummy. That goes up like so, and then you put your cap on. And that fits flush with the bottom cap. That's the guide to keep your piston from wandering around and hopefully seal it from leaking. So we'll see how good these plastic shocks are. So that's one. Let's knock these other 3 out and we'll start filling them up. All right, we got the shocks built. We've got the rod ends on them. This was not a tool to hold the shock shaft. This is actually a rebound gauge. So as you fill your shocks up, you just desired rebound on millimeters, I assume. You got 1 through 5. And just from my experience, I imagine if you had a bumpy track, you'd want more rebound just to push the car back, or the shocks or the wheels, suspension back down into the bumps or uneven surfaces. But we're not going to worry about that. We're not setting the car up. We're just building it. We're going to make the shocks work. A little tip for putting the rod ends on. I do not have a shock shaft tool. I just take a pair of side cutters and I put it right above the thread, or right on that last thread, and then that way you can hold the shaft as you screw on the bottom ball end. It will not affect going into the O-ring. I'm sure I'll get some hate for that, but it works. It always worked for me. It's one of them deals I never think about buying one of them tools until I need it. And again, here we are mid-build and I don't have it again, so. Anyway, we got them built. We didn't scar up the pistons. All the shocks are really smooth except for this one. And I guess that's the inconsistency of a molded shock versus a machine shock. I guess you could go in there and polish it a little bit, even though with it plastic, but I don't want to take a chance of causing any kind of air bubbles or anything in the shock. So we're going to let that one naturally wear in, and we may upgrade the shocks on this car. May not, but for now, we're going to run it. So let's get some oil in them. We're going to run 30 weight, just kind of a basic setup. I'm running the 3-hole pistons. It might be kind of light. I don't know. Again, the car's going to be run outside on the parking lot, so it's going to be a little bumpier surface. So, yeah, let's get some oil and get these shocks on. Well, it's been a minute since I bought any shock oil, or associated shock oil anyways. They got the old big gulp hole in there. That thing puts it out a little bit faster than I was ready. You don't have to squeeze it. We're just filling it up. We're going to run the shock shaft all the way up. Place our bladder. Make sure you put your other ball stud through the cap. It's a 2-piece cap. Silky smooth. We don't have any rebound. Well, we got it. There we go. Look at that. We got it. about 5 millimeters rebound just by building them naturally. And that's probably going to be about what we want to be anyways for the parking lot. They don't feel overly stiff or overly light, even with the 3-hole pistons. I don't know how stiff these springs are either, but anyways, that feels pretty good. So let's get these other 2 built, and yeah, we'll be right back. All right, last shock, and these shock ends or rod ends or whatever you want to call them, they do have a front and back. The back side is more flat and has a little shinier surface. I think it kind of captures the ball in there. It will not go the other way. Yeah, it only goes one way, so pretty simple. There we go. We got a complete chassis minus bumpers and radio gear, of course. Suspension feels relatively smooth. The fact that nothing was really fitted, or we didn't really file on anything or polish anything. We just built it out of the box. Yeah, can't wait to see this thing run. So we're gonna throw the bumpers on, and we'll come back, put the wheels on, and you will see a roller finally. And we're back, and we have a roller. We got the body mounts on, we got the bumper on. Pretty cool body mount. It's got these standoffs that you put a pin through, and you can run a set screw and holds it in place, and then your trunk or whatever is set on that. That's pretty neat. We got our Amazon Aero Disc, Turbo Disc, whatever you want to call them, wheels, the Hoonigan style. Still got to glue the tires on. These are pretty soft tires, probably won't last very long on a parking lot, but they probably work pretty good in a dusty parking lot. They got a V-groove tread design. Not going to put the running gear in this video. We're going to leave that until a running video. No need to go over screwing a motor to the car and putting the speed control in. We are using all cheap products. We're going to use a cheaper but a quality brush motor system, and we've got the Amazon servo. We may put some protective film on the chassis because we are going to run it in the parking lot, and I'd rather not get it too scratched up, at least right now, because it's a cheap car, but it's new. All right, now for our body. Boom. The Hoonadart. If you haven't seen this video, that's a complete tutorial on painting this body. We got it mounted up on here, and it looks pretty cool, if you ask me. Check that out. I dig the mixture. I know these wheels aren't for everybody, but I love it. It can stand to be a little bit wider in the rear. VTA bodies tend to be a little wider in the rear because they run a different offset wheel. That can simply be fixed by a spacer. Because the rear of the car is about 200 millimeters versus a 190. But yeah, that still looks pretty cool to me. Can't wait to run this thing. And for the announcement, we're going to give this car away. Not sure exactly how we're going to do it yet. We do have memberships. We may do it through members. I'm not sure how to exactly do it yet. We are a low budget channel, and this is all out of our pocket. It's a cheap build. I know that. I'm not expecting it to be a full-on race car. It's supposed to be cheap, fun, anybody could do. Yeah, we got to figure out how to give it away, but we got to get closer to 1,000. We got to hit 1,000 by the first of the year. So we're hoping to give this away right before Christmas. That's my goal. We need about 250 subscribers. So stay tuned for details on how that's going to work. I'm not sure yet. If you want to be a member, I would appreciate it. There are some perks, but I don't know how to exactly do them yet because I'm new at this. I'm going to be honest with you. If anything, it would just help support the channel a little bit. But yeah, going forward, we'll get more details on how we're going to give it away. We're not going to tear it up. We're going to run it, give it a few runs, and do a little breakdown on how much we got in it, where we got it, and yeah. Please subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks.